The grand conclave of the Galactic Council hung in the endless dark near the heart of the galaxy, a ring of black stone and shimmering energy larger than most planets. Inside, silence pressed like gravity. 147 alien species filled the tiered amphitheater, their forms as varied as the stars. Some scaled, some gaseous, some made of shifting crystal. All watched the center of the chamber, where 3 humans stood alone. Ambassador Elias Rourke adjusted the collar of his plain gray uniform. He did not tremble. Beside him, Commander Lian and Lieutenant Darrow stood motionless, eyes forward, hands clasped behind their backs. They wore no armor, carried no weapons. Only the small silver disc on Rourke's wrist glinted under the chamber's cold light. Above them, on a floating dais shaped like a coiled serpent, sat the High Arbiter of the Council. Its body rose 10 meters tall, covered in iridescent plates that clicked softly with every breath. 6 eyes, each a different color, stared down without blinking. The human delegation from Sol System, the Arbiter intoned, its voice echoing through the minds of all present. Translated instantly by neural implants. You stand accused of unprovoked aggression, mass destruction, and violation of the Galactic Peace Accords. Specifically, the total annihilation of the Korath Enclave on Vexus Prime. A ripple moved through the crowd. The Korath were not beloved, but they were powerful. Their empire spanned 30 systems. No one had dared strike them so openly, least of all a species that had only left its homeworld a century ago. Rourke stepped forward. We did not act without cause. Cause? The Arbiter's voice sharpened. Your fleet arrived without warning. You bypassed all diplomatic channels. You reduced a sovereign Korath command center to dust in under 6 minutes. Millions perished. Millions of soldiers, Rourke corrected, not civilians. Every structure we destroyed was military. Every life lost wore a Korath uniform or operated a weapon. Murmurs spread. The Korath had claimed the Enclave housed schools, hospitals, cultural archives. The Council had believed them. The Arbiter raised a clawed limb, then explained this. A hologram bloomed in the air, a recording. A Korath officer, face streaked with ash, voice breaking. They gave no warning. No terms, they just ended us. The image faded. The chamber waited. Rourke said nothing for 3 full seconds. Then he tapped the disc on his wrist. Instantly, every screen in the conclave lit up, not with human propaganda, but with raw Korath data streams, intercepted and decrypted. First, a fleet manifest. 12 bioplague warheads, each capable of sterilizing a planet's biosphere, already en route to the Sol system. Destination, Earth. Gasps rose from the lower tiers. The Velnari next to the Zenthar envoy leaned forward, mandibles twitching. Then came voice logs. Korath High Command discussing Operation Clean Slate, a plan to wipe out human genetic diversity, harvest surviving children for neural reconditioning, and repurpose Earth's oceans as coolant for Korath fusion reactors. Then came images. Not from Earth. From Korath-occupied worlds. Mass graves on Tyro 7, children in cages on Helion Minor, a Korath general laughing as his troops burned a library containing 10,000 years of native history. The chamber grew, colder, quieter, one of the smaller. Council members, a gelatinous being from the Andromeda Reach, began to weep, its translucent body rippling with sorrow. Rourke spoke again, his voice low but clear. We learned of their plan 3 weeks before they launched. We sent 3 diplomatic requests through official channels. All were ignored. We sent a final message directly to Korath Command. Stand down or face consequences. They responded by accelerating the plague fleet. He paused. We chose to act before the first warhead left Korath space. We struck fast. We struck only at those who gave the orders, built the weapons, and signed the death warrants. We left no one alive who had chosen to murder. The Arbiter was still. Its plates had dulled to gray. You admit to preemptive extermination. I admit to defense, Rourke said. You call it extermination. We call it justice. The Korath didn't want peace. They wanted extinction. And they thought a young species like ours wouldn't fight back. A murmur rose, not of anger but unease. Many in the chamber had dismissed humans as loud, emotional, chaotic. Too passionate for galactic order. Too quick to anger. Now they saw something else. Cold calculation wrapped in moral clarity. One of the oldest members, a moss-covered elder from the Cygnus Concord, spoke for the first time. Did you consider warning the Council first? We did, Rourke replied. But your last emergency session took 17 days to convene. The plague fleet would have reached Earth in 12. Silence returned. Then the Arbiter stirred. Even if your claims are true, your methods violate every principle of civilized conflict. You show no mercy. Mercy is for the innocent, Rourke said. Not for those who plan genocide and call it strategy. We don't negotiate with murderers. We bury them. The words hung in the air like shrapnel. For the first time in 500 years, the Grand Conclave fell into true silence. No whispers. No mental chatter. Just the hum of the ring and the slow pulse of distant stars. The humans did not move. They did not smile. They simply stood, three small figures in a sea of ancient power, unafraid. Outside the chamber in the void, a human frigate named Vigil drifted near the Conclave's docking arm. It looked unremarkable, no glowing engines, no ornate hull. But deep in its core, a quantum-linked AI monitored every heartbeat in the chamber. If a single hostile signal was detected, the Vigil would vanish and reappear near Earth in less than a second, carrying its passengers to safety. Humanity had not come to beg. They had come to show the galaxy what happened when you threatened Earth. The Arbiter finally spoke, its voice quieter now. You will remain in custody until the Council reaches a verdict. Rourke nodded. Understood. But know this. If the Korath still have allies in this room, they should sleep lightly, because we know who they are, and we remember. As security drones descended to escort the humans away, the gelatinous Andromedan envoy turned to its neighbor and whispered, unheard by most. They are not like us. They do not fear death. They fear failure. And in that moment, the galaxy understood. Humanity was not a new voice in the chorus. They were a storm that had just learned its name. The humans walked calmly toward the detention corridor, shoulders straight, eyes clear. Behind them, the screen still showed the Korath logs, burning cities, crying children, generals laughing over genocide. No one turned them off. Because for the first time, the Council wondered not if humanity was guilty, but if they themselves had been blind. The detention cell was not a cell at all. It was a soft-lit chamber with smooth walls, comfortable chairs, and a food synthesizer that offered everything from nutrient paste to something that almost tasted like coffee, but it had no doors, only a shimmering energy field that hummed when touched. Ambassador Elias Rourke sat by the window, watching the distant swirl of the galactic core. He knew they were being watched, not just by guards, but by half the galaxy. 3 days had passed since the hearing. The Council still debated. Some called for Earth's fleet to be dismantled. Others whispered that humanity should be expelled from known space. But a few quiet, thoughtful members had begun asking different questions, like how humans had broken Korath encryption in under an hour, or how their ships moved like a single thought across light years. Rourke didn't expect rescue. He expected a choice. It came at dawn, or what passed for dawn in deep space. The energy field flickered and died. A figure stepped through. Tall, slender, with skin like polished bronze and eyes that glowed faintly amber. She wore no insignia, but Rourke recognized her from the hearing. Delegate Nira of the Orion Concord, a coalition of worlds long crushed under Korath rule. You're coming with me, she said, voice low. Rourke didn't move. Why? Because if you stay, the Council will either cage you or crown you. Neither helps the galaxy. She glanced at Commander Lien and Lieutenant Darrow, who stood ready. All of you. Now. They followed her through silent corridors, past sleeping envoys and humming maintenance drones. At a hidden airlock, a small shuttle waited, unmarked, unregistered. As they boarded, Nira sealed the hatch and punched coordinates into the nav computer. Where are we going? Lien asked. A place the Korath never found, Nira replied. Even in their darkest hour, the shuttle jumped to warp. Stars stretched into lines. Hours passed in silence. Then they dropped out of warp near a dead moon orbiting a cold red dwarf. Nothing moved. No signals. No life signs. But as they drew closer, the moon's surface rippled, like water, and a massive hangar opened beneath the dust. Inside, ships waited, not just a few, hundreds, sleek, black angular vessels with no visible weapons ports, no running lights. They floated in perfect silence, tethered to the rock like sleeping predators. This is your fleet? Nira asked, awe in her voice. No, Rourke said. This is only part of it. They stepped onto the dock. A human officer in a dark uniform approached, saluting. "Ambassador, we've been waiting. Status of Project Aegis?" Rourke asked, fully synced. "All nodes active. Silent fleet ready." Nira frowned. "What is Project Aegis?" Rourke turned to her. "It's not a weapon. It's how we think." He led her to a command hub at the center of the base. There, a single chair sat before a vast screen showing real-time data from across human space. Not just military data, civilian freighters, research outposts, even private yachts. Every human-made vessel, no matter how small, fed its position, speed, sensor readings, and local conditions into a shared network. Through quantum-entangled processors, this data was processed instantly. No delay, no lag. The result? Every ship knew what every other ship knew. A miner spotting a Korath scout near Alpha Centauri could alert a battlecruiser near Mars in 0 time. A science vessel detecting a gravity anomaly could reroute an entire convoy before the distortion formed. "We don't need admirals shouting orders," Rourke explained. "The fleet decides as one." Like a body moving its hand, Nira stared. "That's impossible. Even the Velnari use command chains." "Because they don't trust each other," Leon said quietly. "We do." Just then an alert flashed red on the screen. A conquered world, Kalis 4, was under attack. Korath loyalists led by warlord Vexus had broken through the outer defenses. They were bombing cities, not military bases. Civilian casualties rising. Nira's hands clenched. "They're punishing us for speaking with you." Rourke didn't hesitate. "Launch the silent fleet full stealth. No comms, no warnings. The base came alive. Not with noise, but with motion. Ships detached from their moorings, engines flaring silently. Within minutes, the first wave jumped to Kalis 4. On the screen, Rourke watched as the human fleet arrived, not in a wall of fire, but like shadows. They didn't engage the main Korath warships. Instead, they targeted command relays, jamming arrays, and shield generators. Within 20 minutes, the Korath fleet was blind, deaf, and exposed. Then and only then did the human dreadnoughts open fire, precisely, surgically. Every shot hit a weapon or engine. No city was struck. No hospital. No school. Vexus's flagship tried to flee. A human corvette, no bigger than a shuttle, appeared directly in its path. It fired a single railgun slug. The slug pierced the flagship's bridge. Vexus survived, but his command was gone. The attack ended in 43 minutes. Korath forces surrendered. Human ships vanished as quickly as they came, leaving medbots and engineers to help the Concorde rebuild. Back at the base, Nira looked at Rourke with new eyes. "You didn't just save us. You showed the galaxy how to fight without becoming monsters." Rourke shook his head. "We didn't show them anything. We just acted. The rest is up to them." But the galaxy was watching. News of the rescue spread faster than light. For the first time, worlds under Korath rule dared to hope. Uprisings sparked on 3 occupied planets. The Korath Empire, once unshakable, began to crack. Yet Rourke knew this was only the beginning. Vexus was wounded, not broken. And he would not forget who humiliated him. Days later, another message arrived, not through official channels, but through a dead-drop buoy near Neptune. It was from President Maralin on Earth. Short, urgent. "The Xylos Collective is meeting with Vexes. They have temporal tech. If they give it to him, he could undo Earth's strike. Or worse, erase us from history." Rourke read the message twice. The Xylos were ancient, reclusive. They lived outside normal time, seeing past and future as one river. They rarely interfered. But if they believed the Korath were victims... "We have to go to them," Rourke said. "You can't," Nira warned. "The Xylos don't allow armed visitors. They don't even allow recorded data. You'd be walking in blind." "I know," Rourke said. "That's why I'll go alone." Commander Lien stepped forward. "Sir, that's suicide." "Maybe," Rourke said. "But if the Xylos side with Vexus, no fleet in the galaxy can stop what comes next." He turned to the officer at the console. "Prep a shuttle. No weapons, no armor. Just me and a data crystal." "A crystal?" Leon asked. "They don't use data crystals." "They will," Rourke said. "Because this one holds something they've never seen before." The crystal contained not plans or codes, but raw human memory. Neural echoes from Korath victims recorded in their final moments. Pain, fear, love, hope, all captured by experimental human tech that read dying brainwaves. It wasn't evidence. It was truth. As the shuttle lifted off, Rourke looked back at the silent fleet, dark and waiting. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't even really a diplomat. He was a witness, and soon he would ask the oldest race in the galaxy to bear witness too. The stars blurred as the ship jumped to warp. Somewhere ahead, time itself waited, and humanity's future hung on a single conversation. One man, one truth, and the silence between heartbeats. The Xylo's homeworld was not a planet. It was a sphere of liquid light, drifting between stars where time did not flow in a line but in spirals, loops, and echoes. Ships could not land. Minds could not stay long. Most who came left confused, broken or lost in memories that were not their own. Elias Rourke stepped onto the arrival platform alone. No weapons, no armor, just a plain gray suit and the small data crystal in his palm. The air, if it could be called air, rippled like water. Colors shifted without warning. A child's laugh sounded from behind him, then from above. Then from a century ago he did not flinch. Before him stood 3 Xylos. Tall, translucent beings with no faces. Only soft pulses of inner light that changed with their thoughts. They did not speak with sound. Words formed directly in Rourke's mind, clear and calm. "You carry pain," one said. "I carry truth," Rourke replied. "Truth is a river. You hold only a cup, then drink from it," he offered the crystal. The Xylos did not take it with hands. They simply let it float between them. Light from their bodies wrapped around it. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the entire sphere trembled. Images burst into the air, not on screens but in the space around them. A mother on Tyro 7 clutching her child as Korath gas filled the street. A scholar on Helion Minor whispering his people's last poem before the fire took him. A young soldier on Vexus Prime, human, vomiting after realizing what the Korath had planned for Earth. And beneath it all, the cold, laughing voice of Warlord Vexus. "Let them burn. Let them all burn." The Xylos pulsed violently. Their light turned deep red, then violet, then a sorrowful blue. One of them staggered back as if struck. "You showed us death," a Xylos said, voice shaking. "But not just death. The weight of it. The love that was lost with it." Rourke nodded. "You see time as a whole, but you've never felt a single moment of it. Not like this." The Xylos were silent. They had watched empires rise and fall. They had seen stars die, but they had never held the final thought of a dying child in their hands. "Why did you come?" another asked. "Because Vexus is coming to you," Rourke said. "He will tell you humans are savages, that we destroyed without reason. He will ask for your help, to undo what we did, maybe even to erase us from time." The Xylos pulsed slowly. "And if we did? Then you would be helping murderers hide their crimes," Rourke said. "Time should reveal truth, not bury it." A long silence followed. The liquid sky above swirled faster. Memories of the victims played again and again, not as recordings but as living echoes. The Xylos walked through them, touching the images like ghosts. Finally, the lead Xylos turned to Rourke. "We will not aid Vexus, nor will we allow any to use our time weaving against your kind." Relief washed over Rourke, but only for a second. However, the Xylos continued. "Your actions have shaken the galaxy. The Council fears you. Some say you are worse than the Korath because you act without asking permission. I'd rather be feared for protecting the innocent than praised for standing by while they die," Rourke said. The Xylos seemed to smile, though they had no mouth. "Perhaps that is why you were never meant to fit in." They gave him safe passage back to normal space. As his shuttle left the liquid sphere, Rourke looked back one last time. The Xylos were already fading, lost again in their timeless dance. But peace did not last. 3 days later, news reached Earth. A neutral trade hub near the Lyra border had been destroyed. Thousands dead. Survivors claimed human ships fired without warning. Hollow footage showed vessels with Earth-style hulls launching plasma torpedoes into civilian docks. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. This time the mood was different. Fear had turned to anger. Even Nera of the Orion Concord looked troubled. Rourke stood once more in the Grand Conclave. But now he was not just accused, he was condemned in the eyes of many. "This is your doing," the Arbiter said, voice heavy. "You claim to protect life, yet you slaughter traders, merchants, families." "I didn't order that attack," Rourke said. "Then who did?" A reptilian envoy snapped. "The ships bore your markings." Rourke's mind raced. He knew Earth's fleet hadn't moved. The silent fleet was still hidden. No human captain would attack a neutral hub unless— "Vexus," Rourke said aloud. "He's framing us," murmurs spread. Some believed him. Most did not. Back on Earth, President Mara Lynn watched the broadcast in her office. Her advisors urged her to deny everything, to cut ties with Rourke to appease the council. But Lynn knew better. If humanity backed down now, they would be seen as guilty or weak. Either way, the Korath would win. She made a call. Within hours, every human data archive opened to the public. Not just military logs, but civilian traffic, ship manifests, AI flight records. Independent analysts from a dozen species combed through the data. They found something strange. The human ships in the Lyra attack had used old engine signatures, ones retired 5 years ago. Their weapon patterns didn't match current human tech, and their flight paths ignored standard safety protocols that even human pirates followed. It was a fake. A perfect fake, but not perfect enough. Still, the damage was done. The Council voted to place Earth under sanctions. Human ships were banned from most trade lanes. Diplomatic ties froze. Rourke returned to Earth not as a hero, but as a liability. Yet in the quiet hours he met with Lynn in a secure bunker beneath Geneva. "No cameras. No recorders. We can't fight the whole galaxy," Lynn said. "We don't have to," Rourke replied. "We just have to show who the real enemy is." He laid out a plan. Not with weapons, with truth. "Vexus thinks fear will turn the galaxy against us," Rourke said. "So we give them something stronger than fear. We give them proof." All of it, Lynn understood. The full Korath archive. Yes, every order, every execution, every lie. We send it to every world, every news net, every school. "It'll cause chaos," Lynn warned. "It'll cause justice," Rourke said. She looked at him for a long time. Then she nodded. That night, from a hidden station near Pluto, Earth launched not missiles but data. Billions of encrypted packets beamed across the galaxy on every frequency and every language. The Korath Empire's darkest secrets laid bare for all to see. Rourke watched from the surface as the first signals left the solar system. Stars glittered above, cold and distant. Somewhere out there, worlds would rise up. Empires would fall. And humanity would stand not as conquerors but as witnesses. But Vexus would not go quietly. Rourke knew that. The war was not over. It was just changing shape, and the next move would be the deadliest of all. The data storm hit the galaxy like a silent thunderclap. One moment, the Korath Empire stood firm, its banners flying over 30 worlds, its warlords dining on conquered pride. The next, every screen, every community, every public archive lit up with truth. Not rumors, not accusations. Raw, unedited records from the Korath's own servers. Orders signed by Vexus himself. Logs of children taken for neural experiments. Footage of cities burned for refusing to kneel. Lists of planets marked for sterilization. Earth near the top. At first, disbelief spread. Then denial. Then rage. On the mining world of Dravik 9, Korath overseers were dragged from their towers by workers they had starved for years. On the ocean moon of Silva, slave crews seized control of patrol ships and turned their guns on Korath barracks. Even loyal client states, those who had traded silence for protection, began to question. How many of their own people had vanished into Korath re-education camps? Vexus watched it all from his last stronghold. Korath Prime, a fortress world wrapped in orbital shields and dreadnoughts. His face, once proud and sharp, now twisted with fury. He smashed his command console with a single blow. "Humans," he growled. "They think truth wins wars. Truth is weak. Fear wins." He activated the null core. It was the Empire's final weapon. A singularity bomb forged in the heart of a dead star. Once triggered, it would collapse space itself, swallowing entire systems into a black hole that not even light could escape. Vexus had planned to use it only if all else failed. Now he saw no other path. He would erase Earth. Not just its cities, not just its people, but its sun, its history, its very place in time. And when the galaxy saw what humans had forced him to do, they would understand. Mercy was a flaw. The Null Core launched from Korath Prime under heavy guard. 10 warships escorted it. Its destination, Sol System. Estimated arrival, 72 hours. On Earth, alarms blared in every defense hub. The silent fleet, still hidden in the Oort cloud, received the alert instantly. Every ship knew. Every captain understood. But this was not a battle they could win with guns. The Null Core was shielded against energy weapons. Too dense for missiles. Too fast for interception. Rourke stood in the war room beneath Geneva, staring at the projection of the Core's path. President Lin stood beside him, face pale but steady. "We can't stop it head-on," she said. "No," Rourke agreed. "But we don't have to destroy it. We just have to misplace it." He called up a new plan, Project Loom. Not a weapon, but a trick of gravity. Human science had long studied microsingularities and quantum foam. They couldn't stop the core, but they could nudge it, just slightly off course. Using thousands of tiny probes, each carrying a gravitic lens, they could bend space around the core's path like a river around a stone. The catch? The probes had to be placed perfectly, and they had to activate at the exact same moment. One error, and the core might veer toward an inhabited system. "Do we have enough time?" Lin asked. "We have to," Rourke said. Across the solar system, human factories worked non-stop. Probes rolled off assembly lines by the thousands. Civilian freighters, mining drones, even retired satellites were reprogrammed to carry lenses. Every human ship within range joined the effort. No orders were given. No commands shouted. The Silent Fleet's network shared the plan in an instant. Everyone knew their role. 70 hours later, the Null Core entered the outer edge of Sol space. Vexus watched from his command throne, smiling for the first time in weeks. Let them see what happens when you corner a god. But Earth did not panic. No evacuation ships fled. No last messages were sent. Instead, something strange happened. Thousands of tiny lights appeared in the void. Probes no bigger than a hand drifting into position along the core's path. Vexus laughed. Insects trying to stop a storm. Then the probes activated. Space itself rippled. Not violently, but subtly, like wind over water. The Null Core, designed to travel in a straight line through warped space, suddenly found its path curving. Not toward Earth, not toward Mars, but inward toward the Korath fleet itself. "What?" Vexus shouted. Too late. The core's gravity field interacted with the nearest Korath warship. Then another. The distortion grew. Space folded. And in a flash of inverted light, the Null Core collapsed, right in the middle of Korath Prime's orbital shipyards. The black hole lasted less than a second, but in that moment it swallowed the flagship, the command station, 3 dreadnoughts, and the planet's main power grid. When it vanished, it left behind only silence and a cloud of vaporized metal. Korath Prime went dark. Vexus's throne room crumbled. Lights died. Air hissed out through cracks in the walls. He stumbled to a broken viewport, staring at the ruin of his fleet. His empire, gone in a breath. On Earth, no cheers erupted. No victory songs. Only quiet relief. But the galaxy saw everything. The same networks that had spread the Korath archives now showed the truth of the Null Core. Independent observers confirmed, humans never fired a shot. They used science, not slaughter. They turned the Empire's own weapon against its heart, without harming a single civilian world. Revolts exploded across the remaining Korath territories. Governors surrendered. Generals defected. Within days, the Empire was no more. Rourke stood on a balcony overlooking Geneva, watching the sunrise. Lean joined him, holding a datapad. "The last Korath holdout just fell," she said. "They're calling it the Shattered Empire." Rourke nodded. "Good. They're also calling you a war hero." He shook his head. "I didn't win a war. I helped stop a massacre." Back in the Grand Conclave, the mood had shifted again. The Arbiter called an emergency session, not to judge, but to ask. What now? It asked the empty space where humans once stood accused. Nira of the Orion Concord rose. "Now we rebuild, and we remember who stood when others looked away." But Earth did not seek thanks. They sent engineers to help rebuild Korath-occupied worlds. They shared medical tech with former slave colonies. They opened their archives to anyone who wanted to learn from the past. Yet Rourke knew the danger wasn't gone. Power always found new hands. New empires would rise. New murderers would wear kinder faces. So he made one final move. From a secure channel, he sent a message, not to governments, but to every school, every news outlet, every public terminal in known space. It was short. Just one sentence. "Humans don't negotiate with murderers. We end them. Not a threat. A promise." And across the galaxy, those who had suffered in silence finally felt seen. Those who had planned cruelty in the dark now slept with one eye open. The stars burned on, but something had changed. The galaxy was no longer ruled only by the strong. It was watched by the just, and Earth, once a speck in the void, now stood as a warning and a shield. The Grand Conclave called again, not in anger but in awe. The ring of black stone and light hung silent as Elias Rourke walked once more to the center dais. This time no guards followed. No energy fields waited. The 147 species watched not with suspicion, but with something new. Respect, fear, and hope tangled together like roots. The High Arbiter spoke first. Its voice was softer now, its plates shimmering with a pale gold hue. Humanity has shattered an empire that ruled for 5 centuries. You acted without our leave. You changed the balance of power, and yet you did not take a single world for yourselves. Rourke stood straight, hands at his sides. We never wanted an empire. We only wanted to be left in peace. But peace means nothing if monsters are allowed to wear crowns. A murmur passed through the chamber. Many had expected Earth to demand territory, resources, or a seat of power. Instead, Rourke carried no list of demands. Only an idea. The Korath fell, he said, not because we were stronger, but because they thought no one would stand up to them. They believed cruelty was safe if it was quiet. We proved them wrong. He paused, letting the words sink in. But this cannot be a one-time thing. If we wait for the Council to act every time a world is threatened, more will suffer. More will die. So Earth proposes a new path. Not a law, but a promise. From his pocket he pulled a simple data chip. He placed it on the dais. This contains the full Sol Covenant. Any system, any species that commits genocide, enslaves civilians, or uses weapons of mass destruction against non-combatants will be met with immediate response. Not from the Council, not from a single power, but from a coalition of those who refuse to look away. Silence. Then, from the lower tiers, Delegate Nira of the Orion Concord stood. My people will join this covenant. A moment later, the moss-covered elder from the Cygnus Concord rose. As will we. One by one, envoys stood, not all, but enough. Former Korath slaves, small colonies, even a few former neutral states. They saw not a threat in humanity's stance, but a shield. The Arbiter watched, unmoving. And if the Council disagrees? If we say this is vigilantism? Rourke met its many eyes. Then the Council will be on the wrong side of history again. He did not raise his voice. He did not threaten. But everyone in the chamber understood. Humanity would not wait for permission to stop evil. The Arbiter bowed its great head slightly. Then let the Sol Covenant stand, not as law, but as warning. And let all who hear it remember what happened to the Korath. After the session, Rourke did not return to Earth right away. He walked the outer corridors of the conclave where the stars pressed close. Nira found him there. You could have taken a seat on the Council, she said. You could have shaped galactic law for centuries. I don't want to shape laws, Rourke replied. I want to make sure they mean something. She smiled faintly. You've changed everything. No, he said. We just reminded the galaxy that courage still matters. Back on Earth, President Mara Lin stood on the roof of the old United Nations building, now rebuilt as the Earth Defense Coordination Center. Below, the city hummed with life. Children in parks, ships lifting off for Mars, farmers tending fields under artificial suns. Peace, real and fragile. Her aide approached. The last Korath warlord surrendered this morning. No more holdouts. Lin nodded. Good, send medical teams, food, not soldiers. Yes, Madam President, she looked up. In the sky, just beyond the moon, the silent fleet drifted, still hidden, still ready. Not as conquerors, but as guardians. Every ship linked, every mind aware. They built no monuments. They asked for no songs. They simply watched. News feeds across the galaxy now carried a new symbol, a blue circle with a single white line through it. The mark of the Sol Covenant. It appeared on school walls, on trade ships, even on rebel banners in distant systems. Where it flew, warlords thought twice. Slavers vanished. Tyrants slept poorly, but Rourke knew the real test would come later. Not with armies, but with silence. Would the galaxy remember when the fear faded? Would they still choose justice when it was hard? He returned to Earth a week later. No parade greeted him. No speeches. He walked into his small apartment in Vancouver, made tea and sat by the window. Rain fell softly outside. Normal life. Quiet life. That night a message came through secure channels. A young colony on the edge of known space, Orin's Reach, reported strange ships near their system. Not Korath. Not any known power. They carried no flags. But their scans showed weapons aimed at civilian habitats. Rourke read the report. Then he tapped his wristcom. Activate protocol, Watchman, he said. Across the solar system, thousands of systems blinked online. The silent fleet stirred. Not with sirens or alarms, but with calm purpose. Within minutes, a task force jumped to Orin's reach. They did not fire. They simply appeared, blocking the unknown ships, broadcasting the Soul Covenant in every language. The strangers turned and fled. No one died. No one even knew it. Happened, except those who were saved, and that was the point. Weeks passed, months. The galaxy settled into a new rhythm. Trade grew. Old enemies made peace. New alliances formed, not out of fear of Earth, but because Earth had shown that protection didn't require control. Rourke took a new role, not as ambassador, but as teacher. He spoke at schools not about war, but about choice. Anyone can be strong, he told a group of students on Luna. But it takes courage to be kind when you have the power to crush. In hidden shipyards beyond Neptune, humans did not build more warships. They built rescue cutters, medical frigates, shield generators for vulnerable worlds. Their greatest weapon was no longer fire, but presence. And in the Grand Conclave, a new tradition began. Once a year, on the day the Korath fell, a single human representative would stand in the center and say only this: "Remember the innocent, protect the weak, and never ever negotiate with murderers." The words echoed, not as a threat but as a vow. The stars burned cold and endless, but in the dark, something new had taken root. Not an empire, not a throne, but a promise kept. And Earth, once just another blue dot in the void, now stood as a light others could follow home.